How we doing? You good?
You're on the other side. It's nice out
All right. We want to get started. Or how you feel?
Should
You ready?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We good? We're rolling. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hi. So thank you all for coming to our little artist panel, where the panel is mostly out here in the audience, but that's all right. I'll have to figure out how to get more seats up here next time, or more space. So yeah, thank you for coming to the artist panel for Anatomy of Addiction. Anthony, you all know me. Rachel, you all know her, Rachel Coleman. Yeah, we'll just, how this is going to go, I will throw out a couple of questions, and whoever wants to answer can throw in. I got a microphone here, I'll hand it off to you. Then whoever after that, anybody that has questions for the group can pipe in.
Is my microphone
It
on?
is,
Oh, okay.
it is working, it's on.
I didn't hit anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good? I turned it on. Yep, we're good. All right. So, all right. I'd say any questions, but that comes afterwards. All right. So I guess I'll start off by asking if anyone found it difficult to actually submit their work for the show.
Difficult in what way?
Well,
Mentally?
whichever way
Yeah.
you found it difficult.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I have that piece with the mask, and I tore up my actual scheduling from rehab, my journaling, my homework from rehab. It's not photocopies, it's the original writings and everything, because I figured I wanted to get it. I don't need it, so I wanted to get it out there. And there's also ripped up pieces of paper when I was deep in my addiction and I would talk on the phone with people. I knew I wouldn't remember what I was going to say or what we talked about. So I would take notes while I spoke to people on the phone. And then I could look back at those notes if I could read them and see what I actually talked about to people. So I actually, that was the hardest for me personally, to rip that up, because I've kept that for years and I thought about continuing to keep it, but I remember it. I won't forget it. So there was a lot of stuff for me personally with that piece,
Mm-hmm.
as I put it together and saw the words. And so,
Did you find it cathartic to kind of let it go, or was it really painful to?
it was very painful. It took me back. I've been sober since August 22nd, 2013. I was in rehab when I got sober, and it took me, I felt like a very new person in recovery again. Yeah.
And now?
I will be honest, I'm still personally struggling. Since doing this show, it has brought up a lot for me. It has triggered me in some ways. And I've noticed I've been kind of replaying that life before I got sober. So I just need to be conscious of it, and I need to continue making art, because that is what helps me. And
difficult.
Talking about it.
Yeah, it's difficult putting that out. It's different than when you were just making it at home, right? And you're putting it out.
Yeah, when people were
step.
Talking to me about it, I was like, oh, it's here, it's out in the public, yeah.
But it's helpful, right?
Definitely. If it helps somebody else, that's great.
I think it definitely does. Does anyone else have anything to add to?
You do.
I found that
Nancy Ford.
I found that when the call for art came about, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to do some new stuff because I don't know how my art reflects it. And I went through a couple pieces and not knowingly, it was reflecting it already. And, so it was like, wow, I'm already reflecting my, my journey as far as my sobriety. And I think the hardest part was knowing that I had to put some kind of message with it and people reading, my soul. That was really hard. The only piece I started right after the call was this one. And that was really, it's not what I usually do. And so it was like, okay, well, let's make a mess out of this and see how it comes out. So, yeah,
Mhm.
thank
Yeah.
you. But yeah, and it's like Rachel said, going through writing the little descriptions, it brought back a lot of stuff. But also, grateful that I've gotten through that and I'm on the other side. And I wouldn't be sitting here today and doing art if I continued on that path. My partner Fred, we met in high school, and we dated in high school, and then we went apart. And 40 years later, we came back together. So he doesn't know all that messy middle part. So it's kind of like, do you really want to know this stuff? So, but yeah.
Does anyone else want to share their struggles or ease with putting work in the show?
I didn't find it difficult, but I was hesitant because, my piece is about another person that affected my life. So I wasn't sure about it, but I talked to people. It was my piece is about my sister who knew her, and they were like, "No, Brooke, she would be honored if you, submitted it." So I felt better about it because it was something. My sister passed in 2019, so I've kept this piece kind of to myself. So, but then I felt, when I heard about the show, I thought it was applicable. But like I said, I was hesitant, but I felt that she would be okay with it. But I did sort of need to check with other friends of hers, and they were like, "Oh no, Brooke, go ahead. She would be honored." So,
Mhm. Good. Excellent.
I'll say something.
All right.
Yeah, my name
Joe?
is Joseph.
Yeah.
I'm an addict, alcoholic. So it feels like a.
I know, I really was gonna say that. I really want to say that.
My piece, I made that piece for the show. I've pretty much been dealt with addiction my whole life. I was born into it, and I've been sober for like 9 years. And it just brought up like the gun, especially to my head. I finally found myself. It wasn't no outside spirit helping me, it was me. And it pushed me through it. And I didn't really think about it until I started doing a piece because I do a lot of art and I don't really have any pieces that are so in your face about my own addictions, especially with opiates. And I was a trash can, I did everything. And it definitely brought up a lot, especially doing that syringe and that gun, because I definitely have been in suicidal situations. And the pills just pouring them into my head. And then when you get sober in your rehab, they're just pouring more pills into your head.
Mhm.
So, and that was kind of the hard part because every time I was in rehab, because I've always done art, I would take these medicines. And when I came out and I'd sit there, I couldn't think of anything. And it was these medicines. And it was a huge relapse for me. And so this last time, 9 years ago, when I looked at myself in the mirror and decided to become sober, I just did it all on my own. Like I was hitting meetings and stuff here and there. But that was just mainly because I was bored. Because once you get sober, it's the fear of boredom and loneliness, And it's like, It's weird how that works.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
Yeah. And the art becomes kind of your sport.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It
yeah.
takes away that boredom. That's the other thing, being like just not being able to be, not being able to be creative. Just I as far as back as I can remember, I was creative. I was always drawing on the walls, or my mom was always buying me art supplies. And as soon as I lost that, and I also thought I'd lose it when I couldn't go deeper in my brain to come up with these crazy images and put them on paper. So it was always that fear of losing. It's like, oh, I'm going to become sober. Well, I'm not going to be able to do art or play music anymore. I'm just going to have to get like an RC car or something. But it was actually really made me more organized to where I can do shows where I'm not wasted at shows. I was doing shows when I was, what I mean, not offending people because I kind of have no filter, even when I'm sober, but more so when I'm intoxicated. So it actually opened up a lot for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll do a little bit. Hi, Alexis, alcoholic addict artist. I feel like I have to. Yeah, I found it.
Got a AAA rating.
I know, really. I'm like a battery. I found it not necessarily difficult, but maybe challenging to submit. Specifically, The Lies We Tell piece with the spider web. That was very much inspired by things I did in my active addiction that I'm not proud of. And I'm somebody who, like, I can be very honest, but I can also be really a liar. And it really depends, like, what side of me I'd like to show. So that was very much coming to terms with things that, like, I don't want people to know and I have trouble sharing. And it's the parts of my addiction that I don't like to talk about. So putting that out in the open was very challenging. That, along with my piece Sick, so sick of being so sick, that one felt very raw. And yeah, it felt very raw and it felt very kind of embarrassing to even show. Like, when I was working on it, I had it like hidden in my house so that my family couldn't see it, just because it felt so dark and so embarrassing to even look at. So submitting that was definitely a challenge for me.
But can I say that we had a person come through to see the show recently, and they saw your piece, and they work in a rehab facility, and they commented on how many times they have heard that phrase from people coming through their facility. So I think that really, while it's very personal to you, it's also very, I think, universal to a lot of people that are going through it.
Yeah, it's definitely hurt a lot in the rooms of 12-step meetings. And that was also like mental health. It was very much me coming to terms with not only the fact that I've been like struggling for so long with addiction, mental health, etc., but that I would be struggling with it, that it's a never-ending journey, and that it's something I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. It was very much sitting in that and dealing with that reality.
And we have our show next month is on mental health, Gary, and I'm finding it interesting now with the context of the show, having done this show. It's like, oh boy, these are going to be very, if not similar, they're going to rhyme. They're definitely going to be. I think we're going to have, if not some of the same themes, some of the same contributors even, and it's just different. Gives you a different perspective on both the issues too. Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks.
It's your favorite, I know.
I'm back.
So we kind of touched on how, making art has helped you through your journey. I don't know if anybody had any more to share on that. All right, we talked about that. All right, go moving on. All right. So what about, is there anybody else's art that you've seen that has kind of helped you or spurred you to say, oh, maybe I can do this, or maybe, I feel that way too, or anything like that?
For me, it was that piece. That every morning, I don't want to talk about it, but every day I would use throughout the day, and it was a constant chemical balance for me, trying to get high, which wasn't happening anymore because I did so many years of drugs and alcohol, and trying to combine them, and going to bed feeling sick after having a panic attack or throwing up all day or whatever it was, and then waking up with withdrawals by 6 a.m. every morning saying, curse word, I have to do it again. And knowing that I had to do it again just to not even get high, just to get out the door or showered or to work, where I would proceed to drink and use while at work all day. So that for me was the so sick of being so sick, constant ringing that in my head. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I was just curious about that piece because, I hear so much with alcoholics, but also drug addicts, that you have to hit bottom before you can start going up. I don't know if that's true, but I'm wondering if so sick of being sick, does that kind of describe you hitting bottom, or is there even a lower level than sick of being sick?
I think there's lower, but that's your piece.
For me, rock bottom wasn't a specific day. There was a moment where it was like I stopped digging. So they say. They say rock bottom is when you stop digging. But for me, that was more a perpetual state of feeling sick that lasted for a majority of my addiction, and even outside of it. Like I've said, it's like the coming to terms with even being sober and being in recovery, having to deal with these thoughts and these patterns and these illnesses every single day. So not so much, yeah, I wouldn't say it was so much rock bottom as it was a perpetual sickness.
All right. Well, is there any questions from you guys? Rachel, do you have anything?
No.
All right. Let's see.
Oh, is that it?
I don't know.
What's
That's
your
what I got.
questions?
That's what I got.
Hang on, I'm going to read his questions.
All right, you read them. I think we covered them. You tell me.
I mean, has another artist's work touched you or
Mhm.
made you think differently about your topic? Is there any other pieces that have really struck other people, whether you're an addict or not, or just related to the subject?
I think that they all did. We all came together, and I'm very open in public, pretty much about everything. I'll tell you, I'll tell you whatever. But for a lot of people, it's hard to, like she was saying, it's hard to let people know, your friends and your family, that that you've been through in your life, that you've started. Things thing happen. Like, this has all been very inspirational to me, because there's the madness that goes on, all around, and me, just to show, like I said earlier, like this show just made me make that piece. So it's inspiring to know that we have a community, outside of the meetings and stuff, that there's actually something that we all have, a hobby that we all do. I think it's very hard to put that out. But yeah, I think they're all great. And it's an honor to be in a show with people and be with Anno Artem. Be in a show with you and all of you.
Thank you. But yeah, it's and
About hope. So that's what I was just.
Yeah, I'm through this catharsis of making art and putting your story out there. I mean, it's great and it's wonderful, but I'm hearing a lot of pain. Where is there hope? Or was this such a painful experience? Or is there something on the other side of addiction that you wrote up on the wall or you read on the wall that makes you, hey, this is a great thing that we did?
No, I had that thought just like 2 minutes ago. Like, well, personally, I talked about my piece with the mask there and how heavy and dark that was. And I'm actually mentally struggling with that now, all this time after making it. I couldn't make it, I couldn't put it out there if I didn't get sober. Like, that's the number one thing. So there's so much gratitude for that. Being able to come here, be coherent, speak to people about the disease. It is sick, it is dark, it is nasty, but if you get to that other side, I am living a life today that I can barely speak about it because there are no words. If you told me on my way to rehab, like, if you just get through it, it's sorry. Yeah, I wore waterproof mascara today, so I'm good. But if you just get through that, there's so much on the other side. So, and sometimes personally for me, when I do talk about the disease, I kind of get stuck in that icky. So I appreciate you bringing up the hope, because as we all curated this together, we kind of talked about having the narrative around the room. Like, my first piece is It's All Fun and Games. That's the very beginning. That's when I thought I found what made me socially acceptable and made me feel comfortable in my skin. It was the drugs in the romantic phase. And then we are telling a narrative, and it gets darker and darker and darker, and the hope starts coming around. And that's what Nancy's piece is, kind of the full reflection, I believe, right? Experience, strength, and hope kind of thing. And then we brought it around where it gets, more and more to the hope and positivity. So it is all in there, and I apologize if I kind of brought it down. I didn't mean to do that, but
what can I say?
you can, hang on. You can say all you
That and we appreciate that you are doing it and you're all doing it, and that you are up here today, because I know it is not easy for you and all of you, and we do all appreciate it, and I hope that is helpful. Just doing that. I hope it's not just painful. I hope it is helpful, and yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah.
Let's see, how can I? Well, even though my piece was about my sister, there's a phrase, we're the same cloth. So I do have an addictive personality. With my sister, it was alcohol, which I never got the taste for. I can remember sneaking into our parents' liquor cabinet. Ooh, and I was like, yeah, it's not really doing it for me. But obviously, my sister, and they do say there could be a genetic disposition towards it. But for me, when I first tried marijuana, that was like where the voice went, you found it. Like your first painting, everything seems to be working for you. And marijuana is kind of tricky, especially nowadays, because people are like, oh, it's no problem at all. I have friends who live in New York and, Jersey, where it's legal. Whenever they come over, they're like, oh, here, have some marijuana. It's kind of, But I think you can get addicted to anything. I mean, I can't go out and buy a gallon of ice cream because I will sit there and eat it all in one sitting. I maybe buy the little ones. So realizing that I have an addictive personality, what I've tried to do is get into what I call healthy addictions, like making art or reading books. Yes, I'm addicted to reading books. I will buy like a book by an author, and I'll read every book like in succession in chronological order. So that's a bit obsessive, I know. So I do know I have that tendency. So I've tried to use that and go and get into what I call, healthy addictions, like making art. So that's kind of the hope, is that yes, you have an addictive personality, but there are ways you can channel that into healthy activity.
Yeah, and I think that kind of to tie it back to what Nancy was saying earlier, about discovering that some of your work is it means something more than you thought. My piece back here is I thought was about one thing, but then you put it into the context of um, of everyone else's work on the topic, and myself. I am not. I wouldn't consider myself, a addict for anything but ice cream, mostly. But I grew up in a family with everyone else in my family was addicts of multiple things, and I was basically the only one who wasn't, and kind of the way you're feeling, and I find myself in this group talking about kind of being on the outside and seeing it. But then, as you were saying, like you create something, and then later on you go, oh, I guess I was talking about that all along. I guess it was part of me, and you create art. The art you create is you, no matter how much you try to disguise it, or think it's not, or think it's abstract, or you think it's about someone else. It's all about you, um, ultimately. Yeah.
I think Danielle was talking about hope,
Mhm.
and looking back in my addiction, I did no art whatsoever. It wasn't even a thought of mine, even though I had an art background. I just couldn't do it because I was so busy, keeping my addiction up, and you know, and then after becoming sober and starting to really see life how it can be, that's when the art came out, and be able to express things, because in addiction you don't care what your feelings are. It's just, what can I do next to feel better? And my hope is that if somebody is struggling now and they come to this exhibition, that they don't feel that they're alone in their struggle, and that there are people out there that can make beautiful art, and it's very meaningful, and it gets home to a lot of people. And if somebody comes through the doors that is struggling with an addiction and they see this, hopefully they'll say, hey, all these people are probably out on the other end being sober, and look what they've done. So I think it's a very powerful to me. I didn't think it would be, but reading everybody's stories about their art, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, or wow, they really explained it, to the T of how everybody was feeling. So, yep.
So you say you didn't think it would be. Did you have different expectations for what you thought you would see and what?
Yeah, I don't know what my expectation was. Um, I just wasn't sure because it's such a new thing. I
Mhm.
mean, your events are so thought provoking. It's not just submit your work, hang it on the wall, sell it, go home. It's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that's what art's about. to a lot of people is that, it's a very deep personal thing. And to put not only the art, but the words next to the art, that's powerful. And there's so many brave people in this room that have done it. And, you really have to give them kudos for putting it out there and, sharing the message of what their journey was. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like, um, because we see ourselves as a contemporary art gallery. And contemporary art is very important in that with I don't have a art school background, but my take on contemporary art is about the artist. It's about the feeling. It's about the concept, and then you figure out how to tell that story. So I mean, look at your work. Here it's three very different pieces. And if somebody asked you, because they always ask all of us, what you're an artist. Oh, what do you do? And they expect you to say, I paint pastels, or I do this, and then do you tell them, you have different pieces here. But I feel like in contemporary art, it's not about the medium; it's about the message,
Right.
right? So we're trying to embrace that and not just try to mimic a traditional gallery, but be about that message that people are trying to say, encourage that. Because I didn't see that as much in before, and I would see people making art about things, but then we're not, we're talking about the individual things, but it's a larger message or a larger topic, or with all of the pieces that they're making. So we wanted to, yeah, want to do more of that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right. Any other questions? Anybody? Yes.
Listening to you guys and taking a peripheral look at what's here. We're done, but I just admire you guys for being artists, because, like, for me, my addictive personality issues are people pleasing and food, and as being, I don't know, just having a place to put the struggle, the hope, the journey, is, as someone who's not a visual artist, or like, I don't really consider myself in the creative community kind of thing. It's really, I just think it's cool. And I just, it's for someone who doesn't really have a place to. Part of I feel like my old age is I've lost the concept of abstraction for myself, and so it's like, I don't know. I just admire that you guys can do this, and it's very cool. But yeah, that's all.
You probably should just buy an abstract painting.
I mean, my favorite artist is Jackson Pollock. Like, I love abstraction as a receiver, but as someone to create something or write something, whatever. Yeah, it's hard to.
You can do it.
I'll come over here so you can see me. Yeah, I don't know what's been discussed already, so I don't want to, tread over the same ground. But we're saying about just not wanting to make art in the throes of addiction, and I can tell, like, the time and presence spent with your own feelings that the art here reflects. And I'm curious just how your relationship with art making has changed, especially because there is that romanticizing of, like, oh, I'm gonna imbibe and make art and everything's gonna flow, and that's not always the case. So any thoughts about that, I'd be really curious about. Yeah, for me, art was very much before and after addiction, not necessarily during. I do have a bit of an art school background, but even in school, like, my addiction had already started. It was in the early stages, but I remember rushing through assignments and doing them as quickly as I possibly could so that I could go drink with my friends, party with my friends, do or, by myself, which is what happened a lot, especially in the later stages. So art for me is, and to speak on hope, it's something that it's a passion I've been rediscovering in my recovery. And it's, my recovery for me has been very much about like rediscovering old passions and things I forgot about in addiction, and things that, who would have known that I would still love this thing, 10 years on after all this stuff that I've been going through. And I mean, to speak on hope, it's, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I wouldn't be an artist. I wouldn't have made those pieces if I hadn't gotten sober, if I hadn't done, some of the steps, if I hadn't done any of that. I would, I wouldn't consider myself an artist. I would consider myself a failure. So yeah, it's art is very much like a healing process for me, and it's very much as these pieces are a reminder for me of my addiction. It's also very cool to be on the other side of it and to be able to look at this from a perspective of someone who's somewhat healed. I mean, I'm still very early in my recovery process, but to see these pieces and be able to relate, but also be able to have some distance gives me a lot of hope.
Do we feel like if we were to do this a year from now, it would be different? Oh, have you never thought about that? Oh. Yeah. Just yesterday, Alexis and I were talking, hope you don't mind, we were talking about creating these pieces that are iterate over time. And it got me to thinking about, this is where you're at right now, but a year from now, will you create differently? Will you feel differently? What's your art going to look like a year from now? Boy, there's no way of knowing that, but I don't know if you can even, some of you have been through, this for a while. If you could see that that evolution happening already, yeah. I don't know if you think, oh, maybe that'll be different.
I think for me, the pieces would be different, but the feelings would be pretty similar. That's just personally how I feel about my addiction, and my experience is when I go back, it's not pretty. But then I have to remember the art is what helps pull me back out of it. So
Do you feel like it's still going to be pretty raw?
yes. Yeah, I don't know if it's my personality or that I need to do some more work, but there's things in my life and sobriety, me being a drug addict and alcoholic it's just always kind of a dark spot and something that really gets me emotional. So, yeah.
All right, I got a tough question. And
Okay, guys, thank you so much. It's been great.
and we can end in this if you want. But I most of the struggles that inform my art were not addiction so much, but other things. But I found that when I got kind of some distance from those things, I found myself struggling to create because I didn't know what fueled it anymore. Because that's what fueled my art, was that discontent, that struggle. And I had to kind of rediscover that. And I guess, I don't know if it's more of a question or a statement, but to say, I did find new new things to make art about. It doesn't have to be just, here's the thing that I'm struggling with today. But to just say, if you find yourself at some point saying, I'm feeling like I've got some handle on this, I feel better about it. Oh, what do I make art about now? Oh, you'll find something. You'll find something.
So basically your question is, do you have to be tortured to be an
Do you have to be tortured to be an artist? I would say no, but I don't know. It helps. Bob says it helps. Anybody else have an opinion on that?
I used to think so, but no. Sometimes I just want to play with paint and I want to say see what happens, but I have some trouble letting go and experimenting. That's another show. But yeah, no, I used to think that something had to come out. But what I was doing was I was actually making it harder on myself to express myself by doing that. I was just kind of stifling myself, like, no, this has to mean something. Now there's one piece that I had an intention, I knew what I was going to do, and it didn't work out, and I added to it. That piece I will never sell. That is mine. One piece. Hundreds of pieces. So.
Yes, make it up.
Anything else? Let's talk.
Sorry. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot. Lately, about some other things about the concept of artist and this idea, these tropes, this Basquiat, Van Gogh idea, where you need to be this kind of tortured soul who masks things with drugs and alcohol, or has like some kind of mental issue or whatever, and that's what makes you good. Or what you were saying earlier, when you went to the rehab and they would give you medicines that kind of dampened your feelings about, and then you were worried that you would lose touch with, at least what I got from what you said was you were concerned that you would lose touch with what drove you to create. And I think as an artist who doesn't suffer, very fortunate given my genetic history and things like that I avoided any kind of addictions in my life, at least severely damaging ones. There are so many, as an artist though, there are so many things that society says that artists should and kind of need to be, that the more I make art, the more artists I meet, the more I try and be an artist in the world, the more I find are total bullshit. Like, artists are plumbers, they're carpenters, they're craftspeople. They have a real job, they do a real thing. And it's important to the world, in my opinion. And I was wondering, you said that you have an artist background, but you didn't do art in the throes of your addiction. And you said that you did do art through your addiction, but you weren't able to like really get it out into the world well or whatever. Do you find that your art is different? And young lady in the back said, to imbibe and like tune in and get. I don't feel that way. When I make art, it's me and the art, that's it. And I don't want anything between that. I really don't. It's a very meditative process for me. Do you find that your art is different now than then? And I just want to tell everybody that, yeah, being like an artist doesn't make the art, I guess, is my point.
For me, my art is more cohesive and consistent and done. Like, even though, my ADHD kicks in and I have like 40 canvases and 80 other projects going on. But now I can focus more on, like I said, like a more cohesive series of pieces. I was always doing stuff kind of like that piece up there, but I was actually finishing it and researching what ideas I can do to bring that art out. Where in the past, if I couldn't do it, if I couldn't figure it out, I would just give up. Now I finish it and, like, how am I going to draw a four-armed demon? Like I don't plan out my art. I just go at it. So, but I don't give up, I guess would be the best answer to that. I'll be happy.
I think during my addiction, I was part of the huge corporate world too. So, art was not in my scope of living. And I was too busy trying to find the next drink and too busy being, at the top of my game. So, so to speak, in the business world, that I didn't have time for art because that was a waste of time. That wasn't productive. I wasn't making money, and it wasn't helping me drink more or anything like that. So once I got sober and started seeing life as it is now, things started to get more colorful. I know that sounds really, hokey, but it's like, whoa, okay, this is what life is supposed to be, I think, for me. And I started to become aware of my inner, what I really wanted to do. And, and that was a long road too, because I was still, even though I was sober, if I was sitting on the sofa, I just felt really guilty because, my career says you get up and you work until you drop over. And so it's a process, even in sobriety, to adjust to this totally different life. So, yeah.
And I'll say what this show, I think, this collection of art from all of you and many more shows, I think, is that you're not just an addict or an artist or a plumber or it's the beauty of it is that you might be those things, but so much more, and that makes you what creates this. And so don't feel like you should be defined by it or restricted by it or define that you're multitudes, and that's what I think is, if you walk around these rooms, you can't help but get is that these are all different people and they've had different experiences, but so much of this is universal to everyone that sees it. That it's not just you as an addict, or you as in recovery, or you as a person who has been experiencing it from a loved one or something. It's like we've all been touched by it. So, well, that's a good place to finish. I want to thank everybody for coming today and sharing, not just your art on the walls, but coming here today, because it's a different thing. As we know, it's a different thing to sit up here or sit back there and talk about these things. front of people. And we really appreciate it. All of us do, collectively. So
Thanks for
Thank
having the show.
thank you. It wouldn't happen without you guys. We could put this on and put it out there, and this happens every time. We could put it out there and be like, we're putting this on, and then nobody sends anything in, and we'll be like, well, I guess nobody wanted to talk about that. But that's always a risk. But I guess you guys wanted to talk about it, and we appreciate it. So thank you.